So how important is this latest phase of the race for military technology? Well, let's bring in retired combat veteran Rob Maness and John Sitilides, geopolitical strategist at Trilogy Advisors. Thanks for joining me, gentlemen.
Great to be here.
Thanks for having us.
It's good to see you again, Colonel. I'm going to start with you on this one. Talk to me first about the advantage of having hypersonic weapons capability.
Well, this particular technology is called a hypersonic glide vehicle, and believe it or not, the United States actually started developing and was going to field one in the 1960s called the Boeing X-20, or the Dinosaur for dynamic aerospace vehicle. And that project actually led the Soviet Union to sign the space treaty, which I would add the Chinese are also a party to, and is why they walked back that this was a weapon-armed vehicle in their successful test. So it's very important. And keep in mind, the space treaty essentially demilitarized space. And if we're going to militarize space now, and it appears that the Chinese are on that track, the Russian vehicles are not this type of vehicle where it takes off, gets into a low Earth orbit, and dips back down into the atmosphere to gain more speed, and is capable of delivering a weapon every so often. That's called fractional orbital bombing, and the space treaty was supposed to virtually eliminate that type of activity. But this Chinese vehicle, they delivered a payload, albeit it was 20 miles off course from what I understand. But if you put a miniaturized 5 megaton weapon or 2 or 3 on this vehicle, that gives you the nuclear capability, and they demonstrated the ability to deliver a payload with it.
But Rob,
So
as you
it's very
mentioned,
important.
that was actually several decades ago. John, I want to throw this to you, because if this technology started in development with the United States, then why is the United States failing to launch or even keep up at this stage with the technology?
Well, the U.S. has actually been testing the hypersonic technology since the early aughts, about 15, 16 years ago. And there have been a series of tests in the last 2 to 3 years. DARPA just announced a successful test last month. There was a failed test several days ago, as you correctly noted, Scotty, but the military announced just today there were 3 successful tests. And so the U.S. continues to test the technology, and there will likely be as many as 40 planned tests over the next 5 years. That may, of course, be ramped up now that we have this stunning new achievement by China. And I think that's really the newsworthy issue here. It's not so much that China has the technology. We know that they've been testing it, and as you note, and as the Colonel notes, the Russians have been testing for several decades. But I think what's impressive here is their ability to combine hypersonic glide vehicles with this fractional orbiting bombing system, bombardment system. And that's what makes it an especially devastating potential first strike weapon against the United States, because it's a weapon with unlimited range. It can be fired from any direction, including across the South Pole. And it enhances China's potential first strike capability against the United States or against any other country. So it is going to be a very different arms race going forward. The Russians and the Chinese are ahead of the United States. This is going to be a catch-up. We haven't failed. We simply haven't caught up. And I think now there's an urgency to do so that we have not seen before earlier this week.
Well, and that's the thing, Colonel. As you noted, this was something that the Chinese had, but the Chinese denied that they actually did any sort of test. Maybe it's like you said, because of the agreement that already existed. But a lot of people are questioning the timing of the Chinese in these videos getting released. Do you think this has anything to do with what's going on in the South Pacific? The last few weeks have been very back and forth between what's going on in Taiwan, what we're dealing with down under, and the arms deal. Do you think this has anything to do with that?
I believe it absolutely has something to do with that, especially with Taiwan, because what the Chinese are doing is they're changing the focus on, not on Taiwan, but on the United States. And this is a strategic signal to the United States that we are capable of bombing your cities in very short order. It doesn't take a lot of time for this vehicle to get to its target, and it can get to multiple targets. And we are going to do that. And they're sending that signal. And the problem is, the real game changer is that our intelligence agencies admitted they were caught off guard by the level of capability that this test proved on the part of the Chinese military. And that is a hint that we are strategically oriented in the wrong direction, more towards a war on terror, which we all know has been overplayed and went on far too long at the level that we were conducting it. And we were right to get out of Afghanistan, but we've got to get reoriented towards a strategic view of our major adversary, and that's the Chinese Communist Party. There's no doubt in my mind about it.
And Colonel, you know, like you were saying, there was a treaty that came out the last time we were sort of in this situation. I'm going to throw this to you, John. Do you think, without the United States being equal at this point, are we going to be able to force all three major powers, plus others, we don't know what other countries are working on or if this technology has been shared, to come to the table at this state and preempt, go on and get an agreement ahead of time saying this is what we're going to do with this? Or is it going to continue to advance until, unfortunately, we have a major problem on our hands?
Scotty, the United States, as a great power, is still unable to force Russia or China to do anything. What we can do is to persuade and to deter and to use strategic policy to motivate them and to provide incentives to move in a direction that we think enhances our security and world peace. Look, the U.S. and China continued the New START treaty that President Trump was threatening to withdraw from. President Biden did that as one of his first acts as president. So we now continue to enjoy this arms control treaty with Russia until 2026. But China resolutely refuses to come into any new type of nuclear arms agreement because they're clearly on a pathway towards expanding their nuclear arsenal. We discovered around 300 silos earlier this year being built in China, and now we have this astonishing announcement. And I would even go so far, Scotty, as to say that there probably was a deliberate leak of this information by U.S. intelligence or military services because they're concerned about where the federal budget debate in Washington has been headed towards far greater social spending, $3.5 trillion and another $1+ trillion, while defense spending is on an absolute decline. And the climate envoy, John Kerry, may be looking to trade off U.S. security to try to strike a climate change deal with China. And our Commerce Secretary, Gail Raimondo, is talking about increasing U.S.-China trade when the COVID pandemic revealed just how dependent the U.S. economy already is on China's factory floors.
And as my boss put earlier when we were discussing this story, this is a perfect storm, and you can insert your own adjective in there because, unfortunately, this could end bad for all three countries if we do not immediately address it. Gentlemen, great to chat with you. Thank you.